Though, though I indicated only a second ago that the past is the past and we can't land on that runway. That's the truth. But I do want to just reflect on two things really, really quickly because they are pertinent to this evening's discussion. And then we will move beyond the past. We'll dwell for just a moment on the current and we'll then move directly into the future. Okay, so what I wanted to share with you first was this, simply because facts are facts and the truth is the truth. And I want everyone to see with complete clarity what's taking place. This is now the track of our volume, my volume, since joining this company back in November. And so if we look at the numbers, $2,180 in volume in November,
Nigger, nigger,
25,061.
nigger, nigger.
Gosh, 25,061 in December. It went to 60,000 in January and 109,000 in February. So that is, I want to just congratulate each of you and thank you and tell you that this is now, we have now again entered the kind of a path that has been consistent throughout my career, paths where big things are accomplished in relatively short periods of time. We're back in that kind of a path. Let me see why in the world I can't find you guys in my meeting here. Hold on. What's happened here? Sorry. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I lost you guys for a second. So before I go on, I just want to come back over here. Gallery view. I just want to come back on. So were you guys there? You saw that last little diagram that I showed you, right? Okay. So all that is, those are just numbers. But and by the way, I couldn't see what just went on. For those of you who don't know, we will, effective tomorrow, be using a different web room that has higher security features. And so my great apologies for the foolishness that exists out there in the world, but we're at the very, very end of having to deal with that stuff. So anyway, I appreciate all of your patience, and again, I offer my apologies for that. So the first thing that I wanted to do was just show each of you that what we're talking about is not concept, that it's reality. To go from $2,600 in business to 25,000 to 60 to 106 or whatever those numbers were. That is we've now set in motion a pattern of activities that is beginning to work the way that it's worked throughout most of my career. We all know, I'm about the most fully disclosed person there is. We all know that over the course of the last 30 or so months, when I made a decision to try to pivot into digital offerings, that was frankly not a good choice. And that it's become incredibly evident to me that what matters in a business such as this is something that will in fact provoke an emotional response, something that changes the way that a person looks or changes the way they feel, changes the way they feel about themselves. So the difference in our productivity now versus what I, at least, and many of you have experienced over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, is that the product offering is doing what I just described almost universally. It's doing it very, very quickly. That's the first tangible difference. The second tangible difference is that the company is executing to near perfection. I would be surprised to find out that even one of you here has any kind of an outstanding customer service issue or any kind of an admin issue. The fact is, they just don't exist. And so the combination of having products that are doing what they're supposed to do, plus having pricing that is complementary to what we're trying to do, as opposed to slowing what we're trying to do. And then the company's execution is exceptional, but all of those things wouldn't be happening still as I'm describing unless there was something different in this compensation mechanism. And you hear me talking about it each time we get together, at least many times. But one of the reasons that this is happening is because as a result of the customer pod, one is able to earn large income with small volume. That's the two reasons really that this is happening. To the extent that we assume the company's efficacy and efficiency, the two reasons this is happening is because the product is working and because people are making money with small volume. Over the course of my whole career, people have always been generating their income over here in what I've always called the back end of the compensation plan, the unilevel, the breakaway, whatever it was. And these volume figures have always been figured at 5 to 7%. Now in the customer pod, volume figures are from 15 to 40%. And so a small amount of money produces an outsized amount of income. And if we have an outsized amount of income with relatively small amount of money and people are having great product experiences, then that is encouraging and empowering and people talk. And so that's the sum total of what I want to say about the past and what got us here, where we are today. And now what exactly do we do from here as a result? I come over here and we've got a group of targets, and I want to propose a group of targets to you. But when I propose targets, a target is completely useless unless one considers process. And so I could talk about process first, but instead I'm going to talk about the target. Not all of you, our community has grown in the last 30 days. There are maybe there's two or three of you here that were here the first day of February. And the first day of February, I described to you some of my targets for the month of February. The reason that I did that is because my experience in life is that if we have a tangible target, we just might hit it. But if we don't have a tangible target, if it's vague on the front end, then it's going to be vague on the back end. And so you might recall that at the beginning of February, on the very first day of February, as now on the first day of March, I described to you my objective, and the principal objective that I had for my own account for this month was to become Elite One. That was my principal objective. And so then I took the amount of volume that is required to be an Elite One, and that amount of volume is 100,000. So we took the amount of volume that's required, and I then divided that by the 28 days in the month so that I had every single day a target. Far too frequently, people allow 1 day, 2 day, 5 days, 7 days to go by, and suddenly it's the last 3 or 4 days of the month, and now we're in panic mode and all kinds of behaviors that are not constructive to build big businesses. And so at the very outset of the month, I described to you my target, and that target was to do $100,000 in business divided by 28 days in a month. It wound up to be about $3,200 a day. And so then every single day when I got up in the morning, I started out with zero, and I kept a literally hour by hour track of revenue build over the course of every 24-hour period. And the result of that was, now again, I can't just have targets and then not act upon it. But if I've got a specific target, that provokes in me a different behavior. It's totally different. I'm not, instead of looking at $100,000 for the month, okay, $3,200 today is the amount of business I've got to do. Well, it's noon. How much have I done? It's 3. How much have I done? That then results in me making more contacts. And so I'm going to suggest that each of you establish clear-cut targets for what do you want the end of this month to look like. And then I invite you to break that target down into 31 separate 24-hour segments, and then have a daily pattern of activities that gives one reason to believe that that target will get hit. Daryl's, all that make sense to you? So far, so good? Okay. In network marketing, and this is still, again, one day those words would never even come out of my mouth anymore, but anytime you're still in a team building environment, whatever name we choose to call it, if we're in a team building environment, one of the things that I find most challenging for people is to transition away from the reactive environment of employment. So right now, my friend Terry and Melissa are here. Terry is he's a minister, he's a pastor at a church, and he's got responsibilities at that church. And Terry is reactive to those responsibilities. Last night, he couldn't be on our session here because his job required him to be somewhere else. So the requirements of a job allow us to react to those requirements. The transition from reacting to a job requirement to the proactivity of entrepreneurship is the single most difficult transition that most people make in trying to become profitable in this kind of business at the outset. And for me, when I was making the transition from the reactivity of employment to the proactivity of entrepreneurship, all those years ago is when I learned how to have targets and to break those targets down into little tiny bite-sized chunks. And if you'd been with us over the course of the last 28 days, Samantha could tell you that every day, if she didn't know, and mostly she did, but if she didn't happen to know, above or below the beam, above or below the beam. Are we above the target? Are we below the target? We're 6 days in. We above the target? We below the target? And every day as we came closer, I remember when there were 2 or 3 days left, she said, I think we're a little behind the target. And with 2 or 3 days left, we were a little behind the target. And then we wound up quite a bit above the target. You might think I'm excited about that. I'm not. That means that people acted differently the last 3 days than they acted the first 3 days. They acted a lot differently the last 3 days than the first 3 days? What if we all acted the same all of the days instead of waiting until it was right at the very end and we had now got this crush of activity? And so, sure, I was happy with the ultimate result, but I wasn't happy with 3 days to go. We were behind the measure. And when it was over, we were 15% above the measure. That meant people behaved incredibly different in those last 3 days. Let it be that we behave correctly all 31 days this month. If that happens, then the cumulative result will be quite different. Even though I'm really pleased with the total outcome of last month, this month could be, should be, sorry to say it, must be dramatically better than last month because what people respond to is growth. That's what people respond to. And many of you, well, like Terry and Melissa, got involved 2 days ago, so you couldn't really be experiencing that yet. But people are watching, though you may not know it. It's sort of like all eyes are upon us. Everybody seems to know that things are starting to work because people who were not returning my calls are starting to. People that I was having to reach out to are beginning to reach out to me. Nothing stays a secret. Success is not a secret. Mediocrity is not a secret. And failure is not a secret. It's all out there. And so, anyhow, those are my first thoughts. Now, with that in mind, what I wanted to do is help. And everybody needs to understand this. I think Bev maybe catches this. Maybe everybody catches it. Bev comments on it more. Bev can see behind some of the reasons that I do things. So I'm going to announce here a organizational just us promo for this month. And Bev is the one who tends to see behind the promo. Why am I doing it? Am I doing this promo for you? Well, yeah, but I'm doing it for you, for me. I mean, really plain and simple. I'm doing it for you, for me. And what I try to do really hard is do things for you, for me, that I can cause you to become more profitable and at the same time cash flow whatever investments I have in making that occur. Now, I have, because I told you a moment ago, at the end of every month, I review what I think I did well, and I review the things that I don't think I did well. And I also review things that I think the organization did well. And I review things that I think the organization did not do well. And I've already stated the one thing, well, actually, there's two things the organization did not do well last month in February. The two things were that it is not a well constructed, properly functioning leadership group to have a panicked rush to the finish line in the last 3 days. That's not the truth. I mean, that is not a well constructed leadership group. That's a behavior that should be overcome. So I'm not thrilled with that. And the second thing, and by the way, whenever I say I'm not thrilled with me because somehow I've not properly taught the behaviors that would cause that not be the case. So whenever you hear me making any critical statement, it is I that I am critical of, only complimentary of everyone else, certainly you. And the next thing that I'm not thrilled with right now is I'm comfortable. I am comfortable. I'm not unhappy with the amount of personal product purchasing that is going on because of the remarkable effectiveness of the product. And I'm comfortable that people can use those products to turn them into money by selling them, by using them as promotions of their own or doing whatever. But folks, our volume must go in the launch phase of a business, not 2 years from now. 3 years from now, a proper organizational volume construct would be 75% subscription volume and 25% enrollment volume. That's what it should look like 3 years from now. Today, it has to look like 90% enrollment volume because what do we have to do to grow? We have to grow the community. Our numbers are too few. We cannot grow a big business with so few. We absolutely must have at least 75%, and I believe 90% of all volume should be new volume, and 10% should be subscription volume. Now we have, and again, I'm grateful, I'm happy with all. I don't want people hitting ranks and qualifying for ranks because they bought more product themselves. That is just not sustainable behavior. And it's not something that will build the kind of business we want to build. And so in the month just ended, we had about 65% of our organizational volume was product purchased by existing membership. Now, I'm happy with that. We had new products introduced. We had reasons. But if it's 65% of our volume this month is member purchasing, I'm going to tell you, we got a sickness. It needs to be that 75% of an absolute minimum is new customer or new partner, new promoter enrollment volume this month. Yeah. Now, so the two things that I was less than satisfied with as I looked, and again, less than satisfied with me, that I was less than satisfied with as I reviewed last month's figures I've just described. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to provoke among each of us a knowledge and understanding that every day is as important as the last day, that the first 3 hours of the month are as important as the last 3 hours of the month. I mean, folks, did you all behave the same way the first 3 hours as you did the last 3 hours? No. The last 3 hours, people were staying up until midnight. They were this. Well, that's not at all like the first 3 hours. Now, what I would like is to have the flow be so terrific that at the end you don't have to stay up like you did. But it's just real common sense, folks. Daily disciplines done daily productivity is what adds up, multiplies. And so, with that in mind, then as opposed to doing something that was a day or that was a week or a month, and up until now, the promos you've seen me offering have incented the behavior that you acted on. They've been buy side promotions. That was intentional. I want you to know it wasn't accidental. That was intentional because I wanted to get people building customer bases. I wanted people to begin using the product. So I'm not surprised. The pendulum swung a little bit further than I wanted to swing. And so this is just us. This is our group here. New enrollment or customer volume. New enrollment. So whatever order any of you place as an individual does not count. And this will be broken into four separate 1 week chunks. And so there will be a conclusion to these promotions each Friday night when Friday ends. That's at 1 a.m. Pacific time, actually on Saturday. But Friday night is when each of these will end. And so what are the promotions? I guess not what is. It is new customer volume or new registration volume. So new customer, new builder, new promoter, right? That doesn't matter to me. I want it to be about half and half. That's what I want. But volume is volume right now in terms of the promotion. And so if I could
Excuse
paint
me,
the
Randy.
picture, yes, sir.
Can you move your screen over so that we can see your week one, week two?
You have a real hard time reading anything I put anyway, Raymond.
Oh no, we can
Yes.
see it. No problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
I can just
appreciate
barely read it myself, but yes, no worries. And so what I want is I want to provoke daily behavior as opposed to last week behavior. And I want to provoke enrollment behavior as opposed to team buying behavior. That's what I want. And I'm grateful for every single thing that happened last month. But what I want is to make these couple of subtle shifts in order that the business starts to look and feel the way that we all want it to look and feel for a long time. And so, first of all, organizational volume. So Bev enrolls two new customers, and they each buy a signature pack, $700. That's 1,400. She enrolls one with a business builder, and they buy whatever pack for 500. Okay, so that's the number. That's the number I'm looking for. Whatever Bev's personal purchase was doesn't matter. Whatever else happens in her group doesn't matter. For Bev to participate in this thing, that's what it's about. And so for each one of you, yes, it would be a wonderful expression of leadership for you to help people in your group do this. What would be a better expression of leadership for you to do this so that you can then evidence to your group? And by the way, there's a few reasons that we do all that we do. And you guys know what I love to do is recognize you and compliment you. What I hate to do, what I dislike doing, I don't even like the word hate, but what I dislike doing is commenting on the successes that I have or that Samantha has or that we have. But you'll notice that in the month just ended, if you look at the leaderboard, and by the way, I will also tell you this, the leaderboard is a little bit, it's artificial. What it represents there is a little artificial. It shows some of these people that enrolled 35, 40 people last month. You need to understand these are people who had 200 customers, and a customer could not buy the Elevate product unless they changed to a promoter. And so it's not like nobody went out and enrolled 50 new business builders last month who bought those orders. These are already dedicated, loyal people who were customers. They became promoters. And so that created those outside things. But if you look on down that list, you'll see that either number 9 or number 10 is Samantha, that she personally enrolled 10 people last month. And if you go further down the list, you'll see that I enrolled a couple too. So the first message is I never, ever, ever do I say, look at me, how great. No, the expression of leadership is for each of us to do that which we would have our group do. If I were telling you now I wanted you to do these things, and you then went over to the leaderboard and said, but Randy, it doesn't seem to me that you do those things, then I wouldn't have a very good response to that, would I? And so stop and ask yourself, what do you want your group to do? And then realize that it's complete insanity for you to anticipate that your group will do something that you don't do unless it's wrong. Okay, that's the trick. Your group will do things they're just wrong that you don't do, but your group will not do correct behaviors that you don't do. I've made my life experience just proven that to me. Okay, so back over here. 4 separate weekly promos. If during in this week, so this week will end on Friday night, March 6th, whoever had the most new enrollment volume, and a person can enroll on Friday and qualify. Whoever had the most new enrollment volume that week, they can then send me a message and say, here's what you want, and I will then place an order for $1,000 in product, and I will ship it to you. And you can then use those products for whatever you want. You can use them to consume yourself. You can use them to sell somebody else. You can use them for samples. You can use them for displays. Use them, do it however you want. Week number 2, exact same thing. Whoever does the most new enrollments that week, most new enrollment that week, another $1,000. The next week, another 1,000. The next week, another 1,000. And folks, what I'm trying to incent is weekly behavior instead of monthly behavior. And I'm trying to incent enrollment volume as opposed to member buying volume. Everything else that we're doing, that's all fantastic, but it should be very, very clear to you what the purposes are. What are we trying to accomplish by doing that? Now, the next thing, so I see here my friend Mike Brantley is here, and Mike hasn't even asked me yet, Randy, what would I have to do to make any money at this? But I know Mike, and I know that he won't do this as a hobby. I know that he will love the products, and I firmly believe that Mike will be a long-term user of our product offering. Mike, I believe that. I don't believe, however, that if you don't make money in a relatively short period of time, that you will walk through slowly drying concrete. I mean, your personality, my past interactions with you, I believe that we need to put together a plan that causes you to make some money right away. And I'm talking to Mike, but I could say that to each new member, each new person who's contemplating and considering this. And so then I want to remind you all so that no one forgets, because it would be easy to forget, that the Team Builder Booster Bonus is still ongoing. That was not just a 1-month thing. That is still ongoing. And so if one only enrolled today, then of course you couldn't qualify for it for the first month, but you can still qualify for it this month and next month. And so what exactly is the Team Builder Booster? So in the Team Builder Bonus, just part of our compensation plan, whenever one qualifies at team leader and then stays that way. And so we had several people, we had quite a few people who qualified at team leader last month. And if they just stay that way, because that volume is supported by subscriptions or whatever part of it has to be supported by new enrollment, they just stay that way. They don't rank advance. Then it's a little tiny bit of money, but it's just as steady every month. You get $25 added to your account. If you hit the rank and now you just requalify at that rank, you just get $25 added to your account. In the Team Builder Bonus, what the company is trying to incent, by the way, the compensation plan, for those of you who've never considered this, the compensation plan in a direct selling company, micro enterprise company, whatever I'm going to one day learn how to call this thing, the compensation plan is just like the money supply in the economy. If the economy is sluggish, then what does the Fed do? They lower interest rates and they add money to the money supply, because now that money goes into the economy and it creates income for people. That's what they're doing, trying to spur the economy by lowering interest rates and by making more money available. If the economy heats up and it starts racing too fast, inflation is going up, then what do? They raise interest rates to try to stifle the economy, and they take money out of the money supply. If any of you have an economic background at all, then you'll know that in the case of the money supply, if the Fed adds $1 to the banking system, that $1 has a multiplier of 7 times. The Fed puts the money into the system, and Daryl comes along and he borrows the dollar. When he borrows the dollar, the Fed requires that there be a certain reserve. And so out of that dollar that Daryl borrows, now the Fed can loan a percentage of it again, and a percentage of it again, and a percentage of it again. So $1 added to the banking supply actually adds $7 to the economy. That's the same way that it works in a network marketing compensation plan. Add a percentage point to the comp plan, and that will be multiplied 7 times. Take 1 percentage point out, and that will go through a divisor and it'll tighten it up. And so when you see the company offering promotions, what they're saying is they want to speed it up. They're wanting to put more money into your hands. And money is what buys products, which create results. And money is what leads to people being encouraged and empowered to tell somebody else. So network marketing, the compensation plan is just like the money supply. And so here we have the normal comp plan, Just so everything's like this, the normal comp plan. If you just requalify it, team leader, they'll pay you $25. But then the company came along and they said, you know what we really want you to do? We want you to be building both the customer pod and we want you to be building on both sides. In the company up until 60 days ago, people were either doing this or doing this, but there was literally no combination of the above. That was the opportunity I saw when I came in for our organization to be the first to fully understand the power and the value of building customer pods and then having customer pods fall into the unilevel. What the company said was for the next few months, if you qualify at team leader and you are a bronze, then instead of being 25, it'll be 125. And I know these are little tiny numbers, but folks, I know the truth. Most people get involved in companies and industries like this. They don't ever make any money ever. That is the truth. Now, I don't ever want that to be said about our organization, about this company, but that's the fact. And if you can get people making a little bit of money, my observation is not that anybody ever quits because they're making a little bit of money. People quit because they're losing money. That's why they quit. And so if we can just get people making a little bit of money, they're acquiring their product for a net negative cost. Their product is free plus a little bit. And then they're gaining value from the community. Then, Don, they're with us forever. And if they're with us forever, great things can happen. But if we don't get the cash flow wheel turning quickly enough, then they might not be with us long enough to learn, grow, develop, and become that which they must to get the key of the lock. And so if one qualifies as senior team leader, and so Bev Dormer is now a senior team leader, and as a senior team leader and a silver, if she simply qualifies at that level again, then in the normal comp plan, she would get paid $100. But the company is making that $200 now, just adding $100. And why are they adding $100? For the very same reason that the company or that the Fed adds money to the money supply, to behave, to provoke more behavior. And then finally, my friend Todd Scheibe, I know that he can't chime in today, but Todd, thank God for Todd. Todd became both Director 1 and Gold last month. And so now, and by the way, I remember when we had our first conversation when Todd was trying to decide, was he really going to do this? And he said, I need to know how much money, exactly what I have to do to earn $500 a month, because that makes it worth my time. And then what do I have to do to earn $2,000 a month? Because that lets me bring my wife home. Okay, those were the two things. Well, today I could tell you all very simply, just become a director, just become a director 1. And you, of course, earn more than 500. But if you just become a director 1, then you will make $500 a month because 250 of that will come out of the regular team builder bonus. And right now, for the next couple of months, that is doubled to 500. So I want to make sure that you are all very aware of the ongoing and existing bonuses being offered by the company, separate and distinct from these private promotions that are inside the group. And then finally, the Rising Star bonus likewise continues. It's not over. And so if you rank advance to Director 2, so right now, our friend Todd is Director 1. Todd, if you rank advance to Director 2 this month, then in addition to all else the comp plan pays, you would have the new builder bonus of $1,000. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's added to, in addition to, and added to what? If you go back to the team builder bonus, oh, I'm sorry, at the Director 2, there's not an added. So it's an extra $1,000, $1,000. So now, I look at it as it relates to each one of you. I know all of your businesses. I mean, I promise you, folks, there are none of your accounts that I haven't reviewed in the last 24 hours. I know how much volume you've got in each leg. I know. And I know that some of you are pretty close to having some things start to develop. And I know that some of us are still kind of trying to get, broken off the tracks. Todd, in all likelihood, will become Director 2 this month, if I had to guess. And that'll create $1,000 added bonus, not just $1,000 bonus, an added bonus to what the compensation plan was already paying. I want to always talk about you. I don't ever want to talk about me. I want to always talk about you. But I also do this to make money. And so I absolutely love the fact that in this month that just ended, then because of this bonus that was added to the plan, then besides everything else, the plan, Samantha and I will get paid both the Director 3 $1,500 and the Elite 1 $2,000. The company is putting money into the plan to generate meaningful incomes way in advance of meaningful volume. That's the unusual part of the compensation plan overall because of the pods. And it's unusual, very unusual in my experience for a company at this stage of its development that is already racing forward to be adding money to the comp plan right now. Very, very, very surprising. It's very encouraging, and it makes me happy. Okay, so if these are targets, and once again, what are our targets? Any of you who don't have these documents, who don't understand exactly what the company hosted promos are that are going on right now, simply go to the boards section. And if you don't know how to get the boards, then text Samantha and she will email these over to you. I would like every person who is in our group and every person who becomes a part of our group in this 30-day period to all be very aware of this. And I'm hoping that this is a tangible target for each of you. And now I could stop and whatever the truth is, it's good enough. But are there some of you who have not even thought of these bonuses since this new month began? How about all of you? I'm willing to bet that there are not any of you who had this out in your hand today and said a brand new month just started and the company's got some promotions going on. What have I got to do to get it? I'm willing to bet that I am the only person in this crowd who's done that today. Yes, no? Let's be really, really specific about our targets, folks. We are not going to hit targets that we don't set, are we? And if we are not even aware of what the promotions are that have been well announced, then opportunity will slip through our fingers. And what my objective is for you, I have many, but my objective for you is that each of you earn every single basis point that is available to you in this compensation plan. Okay, so now, having looked at the company promos, now we come over here and everybody should have complete clarity. What is it? New enrollment volume, new customer volume, and we're not waiting until the last day of the month to do it or the last 2 or the last 3 days. It is 4 separate 1-week long promotions that conclude every Friday at midnight Pacific time. And whoever did the most enrollment volume in that period of time, simply tell me what you want, and I will buy $1,000 worth of items and ship them to you. Matters not what they are. And that will happen each Friday throughout the month of March. I'm hoping very much that you are on the recipient side of that. Okay, and so now we need to come over here and talk about the process. If these are the targets, identifying a target and failing to identify a process to hit that target would, in my estimation, be kind of a waste of time. And so, what is the process that is required to hit that target? Not my intention in this session to do a new member orientation or to walk through the 10 steps to getting started correctly. It is, however, my desire to illustrate the tangible business building process that I believe would give each of you, therefore the organization, the absolute best chance to hit our targets this month. And by the way, let me say again, thank you for last month. We doubled our participation in the company last month. Our volume as a percentage of company volume was double at the end of the month, just ended what it was the month before that. Now, that's not surprising because we're brand new, but you don't have to double too many months in a row. And all of a sudden, we've become a very significant part of what I believe will be a very, very significant company going forward. So now let's talk about what is our process. And as I go through this process, each of you ask yourself this question. First, if anything that I described to you was new, you've not heard it yet, well, then that's on me, because there should be no one in this organization who has not been introduced to these concepts. And so if you've not heard of it, that's on me. And we need to figure out what the communication breakdown is so that there are no new people who join us this month who don't hear of this very, very quickly. Now, let's take the other side. What if you have heard of it? If you have heard of it, then I invite you to ask yourself at every step of the process, and am I doing that? Am I doing that? Am I doing that? And if the answer is no, why? Now, one thing that I discovered a long time ago was not just me, but humankind has a kind of a natural draw towards the buffet line. I'll try some of that because that looks pretty good. But I'm going to pass on that. I really don't want those sweet potatoes. I really don't want to master the art of the invitation. And so if we treat this like a buffet line, we will get very, very sloppy results. We must treat this like a prefix meal. That is a fact. We must treat this like a prefix meal. It is a very, very predictable process, and the components are known, they are proven. The only thing that is yet to be determined is who is the next activator of the process. And so, what is it specifically? What is the first rung on the ladder of escalation? And I'm not going to go through new member orientation, but we know that step number 1 is what? Enroll, create a mental and emotional barrier of exit. Number 2 is to place an appropriate initial order. Step number 3 is to establish a 12-month subscription commitment. Step 4 is to do a complete back office review. Step 5 is to build belief. Step 6 is to learn to live our lives. The activity, remember, the simple activity is to write down a list of names. The skill associated with that step is learning to live our lives in such a way that our candidate list is always moving towards us. If you want this business to be hard, then go chase people around. If you want the business to be easy, then create a mechanism where people are coming towards you. This will sound ridiculous, but the simplest way to make that happen is to talk less and listen more. If you want people to walk towards you, just talk less and listen more. And people will tell you all day how and why they need our product, how and why they need our community, how and why they need to make more money. And as soon as they've told you things that they need, now they're walking towards you. And when we get to respond to their need, as opposed to trying to provoke interest in our need, then the laws of the universe conspire on our behalf and we get completely different outcomes. So we can spend, in fact, one day this week in the Daily Dose of Randy, I'll make a topic of that entire conversation, the skill part of step number 6. Right now, I'm not going to do that. Right now, I'm just going to start here and assume that we either have, and this is a big assumption, I know, but I'm going to assume that we either have some low-hanging fruit to whom we can extend an invitation, or that we have already learned this process, that we know how to construct a ladder to get up here higher to the candidate tree to get those that we know but are not close to, people who know us, maybe we don't know them. And there may even be one or two of you here who have developed the skill, but I kind of doubt it. The magic, folks, is learning to live your life such that people who can see you, but whom you cannot see, say, I want to work with that guy or gal. That's the magic. That's the skill of learning to live our lives so that our candidate list is constantly moving towards us. But for right now, we're just going to assume that at step number 6, one of these things has gone on or is going on. And so we have a candidate to interact with. The first thing, here we find ourselves, first day of the month. And I don't know. I'm just going to ask you guys to each ask yourselves, do you have a quantified, specific daily activity standard? Do you or do you not? I'm going to tell you that 85 to 90% of the people in this community do not. You see, it's an example of they listen to me. This is what I do. 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 And then people do what they want to do instead. And I can't teach you how to succeed doing anything except what I do. I don't know any other way. And so one of them is, if you don't yet have a daily activity standard, then establish one right now. Just give it a try and make a daily activity standard just for this coming 30 days. What will it be? Now, those of you who've been in and around me for a period of time, you know what mine is. My daily activity standard is 6. That 6 times every day, I will give someone a chance to opt in or opt out of gathering more information. That's what will happen. And I've established a daily pattern of living that puts me in constant association with people. There's so many ways. Again, don't want to turn this into a whole step number 6 training, but the first simple step, but the first simple idea was that I listen more than I talk unless I'm in present mode. And because I listen more than I talk, then people are constantly telling me how and why they need what we offer. And so that makes it easy for me to provide a solution to their problem. The next simple thought that I have is I have basically no emotional attachment with any of the ways that I spend money. I mean, none. I have no emotional attachment with my dental hygienist. I have no emotional attachment with any of the vendors in my life. And so if the vendors in my life are not willing to become a consumer of my product or service, I will find another vendor for their product or service. It's just real simple. I mean, if you're going to a nail salon, gals, and that nail salon doesn't have our products in it, well, don't ever go to that nail salon again. There's other nail salons. If you're going to a beauty parlor and there's not a product display of our products in there, well, my gosh, there's another beauty salon, isn't there? That's just the truth. And guys, wherever we go, whatever we do, if the gym that you go to is not willing to have our products in that gym, there's another gym. That really and truly, no kidding, is the way that I work. If I'm spending money with you, you're going to spend money with me. And if you're not, I'm going to find somebody else who offers what you offer. My life insurance guy doesn't do what I do. No problem. There's plenty of life insurance guys. So I have absolutely no emotional attachment to the way that I spend money. Therefore, every place that I spend money will become a candidate for me. Just a few simple. Anyway, we'll leave step 6 behind right now. But now we've got a candidate list. And so, what is the first rung on the ladder of escalation? Now I ask, what is the first rung on the ladder of escalation? And because this is such a a well-adjusted and well-trained group who's all exercising. They all say in unison, Randy, it is. Oh, no. Pep knows. The first rung on the ladder of escalation is to utilize a properly constructed script to let a tool talk so that our candidate has the opportunity to open their eyes, their ears, and their hearts to the possibility. That is the first rung on the ladder of escalation. And so now we come back over here at step number 6. I heard somebody say something. Somebody say something. I've just checked my mother into a memory care facility. There's nothing that Dihexa is going to do to dramatically change the lives of a person who just got checked into a memory care facility. But Dihexa could certainly impact the life of one whose parent just got checked into a memory care facility if one was to start today doing some things that are preventive. And so every single time somebody makes a comment about anyone in their world who just had almost any circumstance, they are now, the mother fell and they broke their hip. We all have someone in our life who is going through a difficult time with aging, dementia, and so on. All you got to do is just listen to conversations. And there'll be so many people who are telling you how and why they need this. Okay, so now that someone has told me what they need, the first step in mastering the art of the invitation is listening to what somebody else wants. That's what you got to do. And I went, Melissa is a hairstylist and she owns a salon. And I remember 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't remember Melissa being over it. She kind of liked it. 15 years later, I can tell she's kind of over it. All I have to do is listen to her. She's kind of over it. 3 days a week. It's not the joy. It's not joy. She's doing it today to pay the bills. She's not doing it today because she loves it. Maybe she's got a friend or two you do to love it, but it's just changed, hasn't it? All I have to do is listen. And when I listen, then that gives me the opportunity to utilize a properly constructed script. And the properly constructed script might be me talking to Melissa. It might be me talking to Terry. It'd be, hey, Terry, I'm sure you're aware, but I have heard Melissa talking, and I don't think she loves what she's doing anymore. If I could show you a way to gradually work her out of that, would you be willing to listen to a 90-second intro? See, that's an example of a properly constructed script to let a tool talk. And then we come over here. And so now, what exactly would be the properly constructed script to let a tool talk, one might ask? And so now we come over here. And this is a prop. Are you guys seeing my screen or no? Yes? No? Oh, man. Okay, hold on. Share screen. Okay. Now, before any of you rush off and watch these videos, if you haven't yet, understand that it is not my position that there's brilliance in the video. I'll come back around and talk to you about that in a second. So we right now are contemplating a different business mechanism than anything that I've seen before. We want to build a customer pod and we want to build a block of leadership volume. We want to do both of these two things. We don't want to do one or the other. That then leads to two separate and distinct candidate lists. And so down here at step number 6, when I'm learning to live my life in such a way that my candidate list is growing in front of me, that would then have application both to a person that I'm envisioning as a pod participant and separately people that I envision as those who would build the business with me. And so what you see here are two separate tools to talk. First rung on the ladder of escalation is what? We utilize a properly constructed script to let a tool talk if the candidate that has been identified at step number 6 is a candidate for the customer pod. And this, again, it just comes from listening. The person's talking about the need for a product. Well, over my whole life, I've not even been listening to somebody talking about a need for the product. And if they were talking about a need for the product, all I did was tell them about a business. It's no surprise that big percentage of them didn't say, oh my gosh, yes, I have to do that. So if when I'm listening, I'm hearing a person talk about physical pain, ailments, themselves, their family, those kinds of issues, health scares, Well, now that paves the way for me to utilize a properly constructed script to let a tool talk. And the tool that I would have talk would be what? Nueva Life, your first look at the products. And it's 5 minutes and 35 seconds long. We're not going to listen to that together right now. I invite you all to listen to it after this session is over. And so I now utilize a properly constructed script, something just like that. Hey, Terry, in a conversation with Melissa last week, it sounded to me like the bloom is off the rose of that salon. Terry, I can show you and Melissa how to further monetize the salon and maybe work her way out of it in a couple of years. I got a short video clip I'd love to send you if you'd like to watch it. Okay, that's the way of utilizing a properly constructed script to let a tool talk. And so now I send a text or an email or whatever the method was. And at the bottom of it, because remember this, folks, every single thing that we do, not some things that we do, all things that we do are teaching somebody else what they must do. And so I was taught most of the things that I was taught early in my career, early in my participation in this home based business arena. Most of what I was taught was really, really good information. Some things that I was taught was just wrong, taught by well intended people, but it was just wrong. I was taught, for example, that if I sent Daryl that video, that sometime right away, in the next 24 hours, I should call Daryl back and say, Daryl, wasn't that exciting? All these funky words to say that would never come out of my mouth. Daryl, what did you like about that the best? Those aren't things that would come out of my mouth normally. That would sound to me like an artificial script, which is what it is, and it wouldn't work. Um, it turns out that's not very attractive because if I'm chasing Daryl, then in the back of his mind, he's learning I have to chase people. And it's not attractive, is it? It's just not attractive. And so that is why in that text, right beneath the link, that is why I say, excuse me 1 second. Sorry. Whoa. Excuse me. That is why I say beneath it, Daryl, I think that you'll really like this, but you tell me if you'd like the conversation to continue. And in so doing, I just let him know, Daryl, I'm not chasing you. And by telling him, showing him I'm not chasing him, I'm teaching him that he's not chasing somebody else. And just like that, I've disarmed so much. The reason that I don't get a lot of the objections that a lot of people get in our business is because I'm in front of the objection. I'm eliminating the objection before it's not just voiced. By the time the objection is voiced, long before that, it was felt. When you have mastered this simple process, it allows you to eliminate the objection before it arises. And that's, there's a little bit of nuanced skill that goes along with that. But when we learn to neutralize the objection so it never even occurs, then this all of a sudden becomes just kind of a free flowing behavior that feels good for all participants. And so I lob the ball across the net. And most of you have heard this commentary many times. I lob the ball across the net. What do I mean by that? So many years ago, I had a collegiate golf scholarship. And so I'm a decent golfer for a long time. I'm not horrible now. But it's no fun for me to do things. And by the way, this is a little bit of a glimpse into my character. I'd like to improve someday. It's part of why I push myself so hard now. It's no fun for me to not be as good at anything as I once was. It's just no fun. It's fun for me to get better. It's no fun to get worse. And I will never be as good a golfer as I once was. It's just, it can't happen. I'm 68 years old. I don't have the physical capabilities that I once had. And so I can't ever do that. And so that's why I don't play golf anymore, because it's no fun for me to do something not as well as I once did. That's why I play a lot of tennis. I'm so bad that I have to get better every time. I mean, you almost can't be worse than me. You watch good tennis players, they slam the ball and it dives into the court on the other side of the net. Players like me, they chip the ball and it soars over the back fence. And so mostly if I go to the tennis court, I go by myself, nobody wants to play with me. I just get a basket of balls and I'm just lobbing them across the net. And I'm trying to create this. I'm trying to create that topspin. I'm trying to get the ball shaped like that. But there's nobody over there. So I'm just lobbing the ball across the net, lobbing it across the net. I'm not expecting it to come back. That's the same way that I feel here. There's nobody over there. I'm just lobbing the ball across the net. But I'm going to lob it across 6 times a day. And if I lob it across the net 6 times a day, that means more than 2,000 people will be given a chance to opt in or opt out over the course of a 12-month period of time. If you give 2,000 people a chance to opt in or opt out of this idea in the next 12 months, you will have a business 12 months from now. The thing that could stop that from occurring is if you didn't give it a chance, because we just didn't lob the ball across the net enough. Lob the ball across the net enough times. Then you'll find those who are looking instead of having to chase those that you're looking for. Big, big, big difference. Okay. So, having identified a candidate, how? Because I listened. Having identified a candidate, how? Because I have no emotional attachment to the various places and ways that I spend money. Having identified a candidate, because I've learned to live my life in such a way that a candidate list is constantly moving towards me. That is knowledge that can be gained and a skill that can be developed by anybody. Now, I've also gone a long, long ways towards gathering the knowledge and then developing the skill to know what to say and what not to say to cause a candidate's eyes, ears, and hearts to become open to the possibility. Now, understand this, in our method of doing business, there are two primary flaws. One is being afraid to talk. Moments of opportunity come and go, and we just don't act on it because of fear. The other fault is equally detrimental, and that's being afraid to stop talking because of fear. And they are both equally detrimental. Knowing what to say and what not to say, then getting out of the way to let a tool talk so it can look for those who want what we have. That is the intent of the entire process. And so now I let a tool talk. And as we've just seen, I let a tool talk about the product offering. If the candidate was identified as a result of the pod, or there is a separate tool that I would let talk if it is about the business opportunity. And that separate tool is here. Hold on. Separate tool is right here. And that one is called Your First Look. Okay, so the first one was your first look at the products. The second one is your first look at the business. And so I've identified a candidate. I've identified if the candidate was for the pod or for the business. I then create a properly constructed script to let a tool talk. I select the appropriate video based upon the nature of the candidate. I say beneath the final line on the text, I think that you'll be very happy about this. I'm excited about it, but I'd like to know from you if you'd like to continue the conversation after your review. Now, in so doing, I'm teaching them that I'm not going to chase them. I'm teaching them they need not chase somebody else. And that then leads me to the second rung on the ladder of escalation. Now, if this is a pure customer pod, then there is literally no further need for the ongoing ladder of escalation. The ladder of escalation was created to bring business partners into the entity. If it is about the product alone, then we shift gears. Now, as I go forward, I'm talking about enrolling new members who are business builders who will both create pods and enroll new members. So, step number 6, I've identified a candidate. I learned how to listen so I would know what to say and what not to say. Step number 7, I learned how to invite, utilizing a properly constructed script to let a tool talk. Many, many, many years ago, when I was just being taught this same principle, a person, Nathan Rex, was teaching me, and I asked myself, so Nathan, what would be the video that I should use? And things have changed since then. The introductory video way back then was 30 minutes long. And today is a soundbite society, 4 and 5 minutes. That is long. That's as long as you could possibly go for a very first look tool. These are effective and they'll work. But when Nathan said, well, Randy, it's obvious the tool that you should use is called Catching the Wave. Well, that sounded good. I liked the video Catching the Wave. But then what I found out to my great concern was that Nathan was selling Catching the Wave. And so that made me wonder, was it real or was it just that was what he wanted me to buy because he was selling it? And so I went and I met with a guy named Mark Barrett, and Mark said, "Oh, Randy, the video is called Momentum. That's the video." And then, sure enough, he was selling Momentum. And I went and I talked to Mark Yarnell, and Mark told me the truth. Mark said, "Randy, it doesn't matter. The guy you're looking for, you could send him a blank video, and they'd call you back and say, 'Hey, what was supposed to be on that video?' It's not the tool that matters. It is the process that matters. The process is to identify a candidate at step number 6. It is to learn how to master the art of the invitation, knowing what to say and what not to say, so that our candidate opens their eyes, their ears, and their hearts to the possibility. It is about helping them understand that as we are not chasing them, they will not need to chase anybody else. It is then simply stating, upon review of the video, let me know if you'd like to continue the conversation. Yes, that will almost always, that will be the outcome if we properly develop the relationship at step number 6. And if we properly invite it at step 7, then the vast majority of time, I mean, the vast majority of time, the response will be, well, sure, I'd like to know more. At which point in time, now this second rung on the ladder of escalation is what? Conveniently enough, so that we could not possibly mistake it. There we see the next video over there called Nueva Life, the second rung on the ladder. And so now when a person watches that video, when they have reviewed the first video, asked for the second, I now know. I know. If they ask for the second video and review it, if they ask for it and review it, they are going to join me. Will they join me this week? Maybe. Will they join me this month? Probably within the month. Will they join me sometime? Almost always. Almost always. And so now, by the time we get here, I am now completely assumptive. I said they're almost always going to join me. There is still a process that goes on because each person has a different method of gathering information and then acting upon that information. So person says, well, yeah, that makes kind of good sense. I send the second video over. And when I send the video, now I'm completely assumptive. When I send the video, I say, Raymond, the second video is about 3 times as long as the first. It'll go into quite a bit more detail about who our company is and what our entity is and what the possibilities are. I'm still not complete, but enough more detail for you to have a pretty good sense about where you'd like to go with this. I would like to schedule our next discussion where we stop talking about just entirely what it is and we talk a little bit about what we do. That's what we're going to talk a little bit about what we do. And when we talk a little bit about what we do, I can almost assure you they're going to say, sure, I'd like to know more. Terrific. Our next conversation, I'd like this to be a talk about what we do. I'm going to send you one more video to review in advance of that conversation. And this will be the 10 steps to getting started correctly, also found on this same YouTube page. And so now I send the 10 steps to getting started correctly. Why, you ask, do I have them view those 10 steps as opposed to simply having the conversation with them? Hold on. It is because I have found that there are countless, almost unending numbers of wrong ways to do this. But I've been able to identify only one correct way. I only know one way where the odds become dramatically on my side or on your side if you're the business builder in that point in time. And so I remember when I was in this process of learning myself, I listened to Nathan speak, and I wish all of you had had a chance to listen to Nathan Rick speak before he passed away. One of the most brilliant communicators I've ever heard as it related to delivering information about this particular method of doing business. And I listened to him talk, and it was great. I was engaged, but I had absolutely no idea what I would need to do to succeed. I listened to him talk. Products, company, time, and comp plan. Yeah, but what do you want me to do? What exactly would I have to do to make any money at this? And I hadn't learned that in the presentation. That's why I stood and I waited in line. And when I got there, I said, Nathan, what exactly would I have to do? And that's when he said, well, Randy, there's a process. In fact, these are his words, not mine. He, in fact, said there's a proved and predictable pattern of activities. There's no luck and there's no guesswork. And if you do A, you'll get B. And if you do C, you'll get D. How many times have you folks heard me say that? That's what I heard from Nathan. And I said, okay, that's what I want to know. He said, no problem. We need to go through a new member orientation. And so though I was not yet a member, Nathan did a new member orientation with me because it was not actionable until I knew what it is and what you want me to do. Now it's actionable. But if I only know what it is, that is not actionable for me. And that's why I do way more new member orientations among people who have not yet joined. That winds up being for me most frequently the point of logical conclusion. And by the way, that's why I consider this to be helping each new candidate arrive at his or her point of logical conclusion, whatever that conclusion is. Not what I want them to do, helping them arrive at what is right for them to do. That is what the process is designed to create. And so when somebody asks me if I'll help them close their candidate, no, I will not. What I will do is show you a process whereby your candidate can arrive at the right decision for him or her. And so now, if I teach a person what are the 10 steps to getting started correctly, and I teach them the ladder of escalation, now I know what is the product, company, timing, comp plan, training, and support. I know what it is, and I know what to do. If I know what it is and I know what to do, that then becomes actionable for me, and I can do something with it. And so most frequently, and by the way, I allow people no one ever hears from me, give me your credit card now. Okay, Paul, it's time. Let's do it. Let's get on with it. Nobody ever hears that from me because that's about what I want. It's not what matters. What matters is what does Paul want? What do each of you want? So we go to the 10 steps to getting started correctly. Very, very infrequently, but once in a while, somebody receives that very first message and they say, I want to enroll. Great, I'll enroll them. I don't ever say, no, no, no. We have all these other steps to go through. I say, okay, I'll enroll you. But what we need to do is have a new member orientation before you talk to your very first person so you understand there is a proven predictable pattern of activities here. more frequently by the time a person has watched this and watched this, especially if they happen to be down here on this low hanging fruit side. If it's relatively low hanging fruit, even up here, it's not unusual for a person to enroll after the second step. In my case, almost everyone has enrolled by the time we get through the 10 steps to getting started correctly. And the 10 steps to getting started correctly, there are two, this rung and this rung could be interchanged. This one is the private small group presentation or home business review. These are interchangeable in where they fit on the ladder of escalation, depending a little bit on the circumstance, geography, and all those kinds of things. And so when remember that there are only 4 skills. There are 4 skills required to really do this well. That's it. 4 skills. There are multiple character attributes, but there are 4 skills. Those 4 skills are knowing first how to live our lives so that our candidate list grows in front of us. That's a skill. Second, developing the skill of how to invite. Third, knowing how to present the business in a fashion that can duplicate. Now, very frequently, people think, in fact, they don't think they're right. I'm about the most old fashioned guy in this business. I am. I'm an old fashioned guy because I don't know how I ever would have become as close of friends with Terry and Melissa and their family if we'd never been face to face. Would we? I mean, is it even possible? Terry's been in my home. I've been in their home. And we've been around the block together. And I don't know that our relationship would ever become what it is had we just been on Zooms. I think probably not. I don't know how that's even possible. And there are quite a few of you on here that I could say that same thing. I mean, I've been in Carol's home and Carol's been in my home. I've not been in Bev's home. She's been in mine a couple of times. Um, Personal interaction is important. I see Susan Guthrie is here. I've been in Susan's home. I think Susan's probably been in mine. This is a business of relationship. It's a business of association. And when people ignore that, they ignore it at great peril. Technology helps some things, but technology can completely unwind some other things if we forget the importance of human relationship. And so up here, a private small group presentation, what is that? Well, that is when a person has listened to that first rung tool, they have had a second exposure. We've taken these steps, and now I invite them to a business presentation. You could think of whenever I announce that I'm doing a business presentation for the group, that is not this. The business presentation for the group is the next rung on the ladder of escalation. Because now, just imagine for a moment, Don, your candidate watched the first video about a product or a business. If it was about the business, and then we go forward. Well, in fact, in either case, you're going to do this with just the product. Then we get here. Yes, they want to know more. We move on up, and now finally we get to the point where we have a private small group presentation. Now it's in your own little group. It's you and 7 people. It's you and 8 people. It's you and 9 people and me, and we present the business. So you're brand new, haven't made $50 yet. Just barely started using the products. So your candidates are going to see what? And that wasn't true, Don, by the way. I've been around the industry for a long time, using that as an example. Brand new person, never made any money in this industry, doesn't know a darn thing about it. Her candidates will then be interacting with someone who they don't think of as a leader in this environment. She's brand new at this, they know it, and they don't know me. And so that's not ideal. It isn't. So there needs to be a next step behind that. And then, folks, when I do these daily doses of Randy, and most frequently, I ask 4 or 5 of you to talk for a minute. That is the perfect concluding point. I mean, Don, if a person's done this, 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 and this, and this, and then they come here and they hear Raymond talking about getting rid of his oxygen, and they hear this and they hear that and the next thing, that then becomes the ultimate concluding point if a person is not concluded before then. The home business review is when we actually do it in person. The private small group presentation is when it's gathered together in a Zoom meeting room. And this is an area where not just now, I have always struggled trying to get a large enough percentage of an organization to embrace this thought. When you take ownership of your business, when it's you and your 7 or 8 candidates, and you and I are together presenting the business to them, now I am helping you grow your business. When you simply invite your candidate onto one of these group sessions, now you are a part of my business as opposed to me helping you grow yours. It's a big difference in what the financial outcomes are. Each one of these things that I'm talking about, they can be used in multiple ways. But where did this all begin? It all began back here. We established targets. And now that I've established targets, and what are my targets? My targets I'm establishing by reviewing whatever the company promotions are. My targets I'm establishing by reviewing whatever are the organizational promotions this month. My targets I'm establishing based upon my personal need and my personal objective. Now I've got a specific, tangible target. Since I have a target, now it would be complete folly to think that I might hit a target if I don't have a definitive daily activity standard. Otherwise, too many days will go by and we never catch up. There is no such thing. That's why I'm always fascinated at the end of the month. You cannot run really, really hard the last 3 days and make up for walking for 26. It's not the way that it works. We do not catch up. We stay on pace or we fall behind or are ahead of the pace. There is no such thing as catching up. Just kind of block that from your mind forever. So we establish our daily activity standard based upon our targets. And then if any of you have not yet been through a new member orientation, you need to go through one. And why do I ask a person to review the 10-step video first? Because if we were to do a new member orientation, and imagine you've never been in direct selling before, and now you're hearing all brand new concepts, hearing things you haven't heard before, you don't know this, you know that, it will still feel pushy at the end of a new member orientation. If a person's hearing those 10 steps for the first time, it will feel pushy if I ask them to take action. And I don't want to feel like I am pushing, and I don't want you to feel like you're being pushed. It does not work. It doesn't work even for those who have the pushy type personalities. And for the vast majority of people, it certainly does not. And so the reason that I send that video is because I say, Paul, when I send this next video, because now you've watched the first video, said, sure, I want to hear more. You watched the second video, you said, sure, I want to hear more. Having done that, anyway, this is the first rung of the ladder of escalation, properly constructed script. After that, I know what I had scribbled on there. This is supposed to be a new member orientation, 10 steps. Okay. So now I send the 10-step video. And the reason that I do it is because when we personalize it for you, I don't want you to be hearing those things for the first time if you've already heard them once. So you've already learned in the video what it means to place an appropriate initial order. And so, like, for example, Terry and Melissa, your new member enrolled yesterday, but I most frequently don't want a person to place a first order until they have both watched the 10 steps to getting started correctly, and then we've had a personalized new member orientation, because they will almost universally place a different order if they understand all of the ramifications of it. That's just the truth. And so that winds up being the time when most first orders are placed for me, the way that I typically do it. So we lob the ball across the net to let a tool talk. If the ball comes back, we send the second ball across the net. When the second ball goes across the net, if they watch it, now there's very close to 100% chance they're going to join me. And so at that point in time, what do? Then I invite them to participate in a private small group presentation if I feel it's appropriate, or I send them 10 steps to getting started correctly video. If I sent the 10 steps to getting started correctly video, that is to set the stage for us to have an actual personalization of those 10 steps in an individual discussion. That then leads to a private small group presentation or a home business review. And that is the process. And that process repeated over time will create a very, very, very large income. If you teach other people how to engage in the process, that is when you're able to completely separate yourself from the generation of income and when there are no more limitations. So I establish targets. I establish targets based upon goals. I then establish a pattern of activities that makes it logical to hit the targets, and I measure my month one day at a time throughout the course of the month, as opposed to letting it spill all over everything. Okay, now all of that being said, Don has actually been around this industry for a long time. It's had a lot of success. And so, Don, I'm just going to ask you, what are your comments, thoughts, any things that you don't understand or disagree with? And there's no problem with disagreeing. And tell me your thoughts.
Okay. So I'm really, really impressed. Like, uh, I've never been taught. I've always pushed back. Let me say, I've always pushed back because I always had a leader that, how you said at the end of the month, oh, Dawn, you're this close, put in $1,000 order and you hit your rank. And, and it was like, and I brought in some new people and stuff. And I had to think about it. Like, I was like, oh, wait, oh, I'm close to hitting a rank. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm doing this a whole different way because I really believe in the system and I really, really enjoy I really like your teaching. Like it's nothing I've ever heard before and it's just I'm excited like because I like to write things down and I write things down, I write goals down and everything. Daily activity, I've been really trying because that's one thing that I knew that with any business to be successful, you've got to be doing daily activity and you've got to be showing your people that that's what you're doing and so that they follow you. So I've really been focusing on doing that and I've yeah like I'm blown away by your training, Randy, actually. Like
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad that I met you through AI.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Don. Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks. I'm very
And
excited.
folks, you know what Don just said? She's been around the direct selling industry for years and years and years. There are multiple quantifiable reasons that so few people have had a great experience. It's not that there's not a lot of wonderful people. There have been very few properly educated leadership groups created in this industry.
Mhm.
That is our opportunity. In Nueva, they produce the product. Our opportunity is to create the structure, the environment, the correctness, the truthfulness of the whole thing, such that a person feels better about it every day, as opposed to
Mhm.
feeling worse about it every day. And that, I assure you, that's what this process will do. Carrie and Melissa, just chime in and tell me whatever your thoughts, anything, it doesn't matter what, tell me what's going on. What's in your heads today?
I mean, we've gone through these trainings quite a bit, and
It was a good refresher course. I was like,
yeah,
oh, I knew that first ladder. I was like, I knew
I mean,
was a tool.
and honestly, I mean, a lot of you don't, I mean, you don't know this, but the trainings that Randy has taught us in the past, I used in a restaurant that reopened, gosh, 2019. It's Costa Vida Fresh Mexican Grill, and that led us to a partnership that was supposed to be for 30 units in Arizona. That no longer exists because of the pandemic. But
Mm.
because of the teachings that Randy has taught us, that
We
really
traditional business with it.
yeah, we grew a traditional business from $8,000 a week to 30 plus $1,000 a week in less than 3 months. So it works.
Yes, it
And
does.
so
Thank
it
you.
was a little different structure, but the principles were still very similar to what you were teaching. So I mean, we literally went out, shook hands, invited them to the restaurant, sat them down, talked to them about our menu and why we're there, and
Our presentation
yeah,
for our food.
it was literally at the
Yeah.
restaurant. So
Awesome.
and it worked. And the people over at Costa Vida corporate were like, what did you guys do again? And they could not, they couldn't figure it out until today. They're just like, that's something Terry does and Melissa does, and we're not even gonna try to teach that because they really just didn't understand it. So, but
Yeah.
it was really all just interaction and talking and sitting down with people and actually having conversations.
A relation.
Yeah, and so it was awesome. So
So
and
that
Beautiful.
one we went to your
and
presentation at your house,
right.
Randy.
Well, and actually taking them around the restaurant. No one else, other Costa Vitas were doing this, where we would actually have it so nice and clean that we would say, "Hey, come on back. Like this is where we make our tortillas. This is where we do things." And these were just completely new people, but what they were doing was bringing back more people because
Right.
of the attention and this process. So thank you, Randy.
Oh, well, thank
We're
you.
back here again.
And I don't know. I was going to try to find a picture of it. The picture that Samantha posted of Terry and Melissa's recognition slide yesterday, it was a picture of their family, folks. And, whenever I see their family picture, Samantha and I belong in it. And Bosco, we do. I mean, when people misunderstand that this is about becoming friends, it is about becoming friends with each person that we bring into the business. And that only happens if we're trying every step of the way to do what's right for them. If we're trying to do what's right for us, then those friendships won't develop. Then ultimately it'll become resentment. And so anyhow, thank you, Terry and Melissa. I'm so thrilled to have you here with us. Michael Pack, you turned on your video, so you got something to say to us today?
Hey, well, I was just thinking to myself, it seems like every evening I say uh, that was so good. He'll never be able to beat that. And then tonight it's like, oh my gosh, he's doing it again. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, you do teach very well. So I do have a question here because I'm doing like everybody else and trying to write down this, and then I had to thumb back through my notes here, and it looks like hieroglyphics. Step number 5. Can you remind me? I just have Friday
On the
and
ladder of
team
on the
sessions.
ladder of escalation,
Yeah.
or on this one? Which one? On the ladder
Yeah, the ladder.
or over here?
Yeah, ladder
Okay.
of escalation.
What do we do first? First rung on our ladder of escalation.
So I have that. Invite with a properly constructed script.
Right. So let's just think,
Uh,
folks.
number 2.
Okay, so what we're going to do, let's go backwards here. We can only effectively invite with a properly constructed script if we have properly sourced a candidate, if we have not properly sourced a candidate. So even before this is this. If all of the candidates we're talking to are dead cold candidates, if we've not done anything to have candidates moving towards us, then the pressure on the invitation is so great. And then the numbers, the percentages are so few that it becomes discouraging instead of encouraging. And so many years ago, when it was Nathan that was teaching me, Nathan taught me that the most important step, and I don't disagree with much of what Nathan taught me, but in this particular case, he was just wrong. He taught me that the most important thing was learning how to invite, knowing what to say and what not to say. Not so. I'm completely convinced that the most important thing is step number 6. It's learning to live our lives in such a way that other people are coming towards us. If people want to be in business with you, then they will be. If they don't want to be in business with you, it almost doesn't matter what a great script you happen to offer or what the product offering was. And so it all starts clear back over here at step number 6. And this, by the way, if I'm living my life intentionally so I create a candidate, it won't happen. If I'm living my life intentionally just because it's the right thing to do, then it will result in a candidate. And so there has to be the proper intention behind every single thing. If, in fact, if almost anything that I do with the intention of making more money for me will probably be an incorrect behavior. There's not a very good chance that that's going to create the correct behavior. So I'm coming over here, I'm listening, and I'm trying to respond to what somebody else needs. Then, now that I know what somebody else needs and what they want, I'm responding to their need. I'm subordinating my success to theirs. Now I utilize a properly constructed script to let a tool talk, and I'm using the proper tool based on, was it a customer pod or was it an organization? Now, at the bottom of the text, what do I say? Here's the link. I think, Mike, you're going to be really excited about this. I am. But you please let me know if you'd like to continue the conversation. That's what I do. Because in so doing, now that's eliminating the possibility. There was a book written a number of years ago called The Fortune is in the Follow Up. Maybe. It depends on when. If I follow up here, then the fortune's in the follow up. If I follow up down here, then it feels like I'm chasing. And not one of us likes to feel like we're chasing, and not one of us likes to feel like we are being chased. Okay, now when the person, they quote, opt in, they hit the ball back across the net. Sure, why not? Now I use the second look, and very conveniently named the second look. Now that they've listened to the second look, there are a few options here. All the steps, or a couple of these steps that can reverse order a little bit, and that takes a little bit of knowledge and intuition on your part. But this is always first, this is always second. Now, there are a few options. It is possible that I could invite this person to a private small group presentation. And I could ask you all, by the way, I could ask you this question: how good do you want to be, and how big a business do you want to build? Because the behaviors that we adopt are going to be determined by that. How good do you want to be, and how big a business do you want to build? If you want to build a really, really big business, then I will tell you that the determining factor is going to be the quality of leadership group that you create. That's going to determine the ultimate outcome, be the quality of leadership group that you create. And so if we were to contemplate again this thought, this will finish out this ladder of escalation a little bit. A person receives the first video, sure, wouldn't mind learning some more. They get the next video, sure, makes sense to me. Now, at this point, my options are that I can invite them to a private small group presentation. And what would that, Paul? That would be you inviting your 6 or 7 people. The participants in it would be you and I and your 6 or 7 people. That then gives me an opportunity to have a conversation with your 6 or 7 people. That gives me an opportunity to describe you as a leader. It gives me an opportunity to edify you. And it also gives me an opportunity to start exercising the most difficult task for most people in network marketing, to start elevating you to the role of leader, me standing down and elevating you to the role of leader. That starts in the private small group presentation. Because if we do 6 or 7 of those, and by the way, private small group presentation means that we did it online. Home business review means that you said, hey, Randy, I know Austin's not immediately next door, but ease on down. And you know what? I would come. And so this is the same as this, but this one is in a person's home and this one is online. And so now what happens? Now, as opposed to doing a business presentation and asking all of you, so here we are, what do we got? 16 of us here? Yeah. And so if I were to do a business presentation tomorrow and tell all of you I'm doing a business presentation, invite some guests, 90% of you would be there by yourself without a guest, and 10% of you would have a guest. That's what would happen. If, on the other hand, each of you had your own private small group presentation, and your task was to invite 7 people to your private small group presentation, now instead of having 16, 17 of us talking to 3 guests, we would have one of us talking to 7, and the next of us talking to 6, the next of us talking to 4. And so the next rung on the ladder of escalation is the private small group presentation, the home business review. And this is where the process starts. Remember, the real role of leadership in network marketing is to transfer the baton of knowledge and leadership. It is to recruit, train, retain, and then fully transfer the baton of knowledge and leadership to somebody else. The single greatest evidence of success at what we do is if when you're not working, nobody knows. And so that is why in that first private small group presentation, Paul would simply introduce me. He'd say something like this. I'd help him out a little bit. This is Randy. He's a good guy. We've been friends for a long time. Listen to his message. Something like that, that simple. And then I would deliver the presentation. But the next week, then I would have you do a little bit more. And the next week, a little more you and a little less of me. And by the time we've done that 5 or 6 times in a row, then I'm there kind of as moral support, but no longer because you need me to be there. And if we've done it correctly, by the time we get to your 3rd, your 4th, your 5th of them, you've made enough money to recover what it cost you to start in the business. Now you can already evidence a bit of success. You've got some product results, and it's become relatively easier for you. And so it's a totally different thing, folks. And I have very, very little organizationally so far, very, very little adoption of what has always worked and what will always work. Always, always, always. You guys want this thing to go nuts in April? Each one of you host 3 private small group presentations or whole business reviews in March. It will go straight up the next month. And so now we go through a series of these, a series. And in today's world, I will say that the perfect environment would be to go through a series of them, with some of them being home business review or in person and some being technology, so that you and the guests are being exposed to each of these. Now, when a person comes to the home business review, you will always hear, if you give me the chance to do one with you for you or a private small group presentation, I will have asked each person at the outset who they are and why they're there. That will give me an opportunity to remember what I said over here. Unless I learn what they want, what I have to say does not matter. And so because we started out by asking each person, who are you and why are you here? What are your objectives? That then lets me modify my message 10%, but it's that 10% modification that makes it an effective message versus an ineffective message. Now, if we have 7, and by the way, that's the number is 7. It's not 17 and it's not 2. The number is 7 to get the optimal result. Why is that the number? I can't tell you why. It just is. If there's 7 people, I know a few of the reasons. It's because if there's 7, then I get a chance to make eye contact with all 7. And then I get to ask each one to tell me a little bit about themselves and why they're here and what's going on. Then we don't have time constraints, so let it be a little bit conversational. If there's 20 or 30, we can't do that. If there's 7, by the time we're halfway through the presentation, one of the 7 is nodding. He or she's had 2 or 3 of the bottles in their hands. They're looking at them. This sounds cool. But if there's 7, by the time we get to the conclusion, one of the 7 is so visibly positive that he or she is influencing the other 6 more than the presenter is. That's the way that it really works. And so then I'm looking at the one who's nodding their head and saying, yeah, that makes sense. And then I say, hey, Don, you know what? You're kind of tracking along here. How about if you and I set a time to do a new member orientation and we can then cross the bridge, no longer talking about what the business is, but showing you how we could make this work in your life. If you'd like to do that, Don, I'd like nothing more than to send you a little video to review in advance. And then tomorrow, later on tonight, if you'd like, we can get together and review it. And when Don says yes to that, then you know what? The other 5 all likewise schedule the same thing. But if I don't have 7, then the one didn't get a chance to influence the other 6 the way that I just described. If you have 1 or 2, it may not happen. If you don't, So what I'm describing, I'm not telling you things that I think might work, folks. These are not things that might work. What I'm describing to you is what's created $5 billion in sales in my career. And this is what's created it because the products have changed. The compensation plans have been different. Companies, management teams, they've all changed. You know, it's all been the same. The pattern of activities that's produced $5 billion in sales and has created leadership structures. They're absolutely unbelievable. They just don't survive, but thrive all over the world. Okay, so now we do new member orientation, and almost always, by the time we get here, almost always, the person has opted in. Yeah, let's go. Okay, and so then what happens next? Now, this person who's had their new member orientation, they are already starting their process down here, but they're continuing to climb the ladder themselves. And so what happens next? Now, everything after this turns to belief building, everything. And so what happens next? Well, if in any 30-mile radius, and once again, why is it 30 miles and why is it 11? I don't know. But here's the way that it works. If in a 30-mile radius of Calgary, for example, if with 30 miles from the host location, whatever it is, I have 11 people who conducted private small group presentations or home business reviews in the prior 10 days before it. Now I've got 11 people who all wanted to talk to 7. They probably talked to an average of 4. I've got 44 people who are either brand new this week or they're climbing the ladder. They've not yet made a decision. Now they come to the event, and this event is well populated because I have 11 different people who all have 4 new guests who want to finish their decision-making process. And so, Don, you've been at this long enough to know the way it usually works. People come to the event. 90% of the members are standing out in the lobby wondering where their guest is. Their guest is not coming. They're not on the way. And when they do finally go in and sit down, the room is half full and it's 90% members and it's 10% guests, and the entire attraction is gone. There are no new mistakes, folks. There are new people making old mistakes, and there are old people making old mistakes. And so, if on the other hand, if we follow this process, then we have the proper mix of emerging leadership, big leadership, brand new people, brand new guests. That's what makes the chemistry electric, and that's what makes it exciting. Whenever you get below the 50-50 ratio of brand new guests and members, then the energy falls flat and it loses all of its attractiveness. Okay, I've rambled on and on and on tonight. I'm sorry. Gosh, I've kept you guys here for an hour and a half. That doesn't seem right. um, I have not been as enthusiastic about anything for quite some time. Enthusiasm. Maybe I should rephrase that. I'm an enthusiastic person. My confidence and certainty in direction has been restored. As recently as 6 months ago, I didn't know for sure. I really didn't. Because I had been so far down the track of a digital offering that was simply not doing what I anticipated it would do. Maybe someday, one day, a digital offering will be a great thing for the industry. Today, it is not. It does not work. What works is when a guy like Ray Holohan says, I don't have to run oxygen. That's what works. What works is when brand new people, Terry and Melissa, make their first contact and the guy says, I have to have BPC 157 because I've got all this pain and I know how well it works. The things that we're doing, it's very clear to me. It's not hard to understand. What is a little bit hard for me to understand is how I could have allowed myself to get so far off track in a relatively short period of time. But thank God, Happy days are here again. We got a long ways to go, but I'm completely confident in direction. I'm completely certain in process. I couldn't be more thrilled with the various product offerings. I appreciate all of you being with me here this evening for so long. I'm sorry to keep you tied up so late. It's 8:30 on a Sunday night, and I've got a little boy that wants his dad, so I'm going to go hang out with him a little bit. Folks, please watch carefully for information about this coming week's schedule. Yes, Mike.
I hate to ask you this, but something happened with my credit card on the Lev AI, and I don't believe I have all your team videos and stuff in there anymore. I had to redo it here. I think you still have all my login information.
I
If
do.
you
I'll
have
go
a
to look at
chance,
it.
if you have
Sure.
a chance, yeah, could you just make sure I have all those videos that you were
Yep.
showing earlier?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank
I'll
you
do it.
so much.
No problem at
Okay.
all. And folks, all of you, please know this. All of you, you can literally pretend that you are the only person in my business. We're really small right now. If you ask me for help, I have time to help. I want to always be able to help like I can now. But folks, this is not going to stay small for very long. It isn't. A year and a half from now, it's going to be really, really hard for me to be able to invest the time individually with people like I can right now. I have no misunderstandings. I would never have developed as I did had I not had leadership who invested personal time with me when I needed it. Um, that don't misunderstand what the key parts of this are. I mean, Don saw it. I'm not all that, folks, but I know how to do this really, really well. And I'm eager to do it with you. That's a big part of the opportunity. So don't let those moments slip through your fingers, okay? Everybody, God bless. Have the best day yet. We'll see you along the way. Thank you. Bye bye.